James, under the pseudonym of Kronos, introduces his creative project, Demigods in Pull-Ups, which reimagines Greek mythology with his family in the roles of Titans and Olympians. He expresses his perspective as the Titan Kronos, observing his children Zeus, Hera, and Hades, and their demigod offspring. Kronos shows particular interest in Zeus's daughter, Xian, a young demigod he likens to Wonder Woman, and contemplates the uncertain futures of this new generation of gods. He also humorously notes his discomfort with being called Grandpa by the eldest of these young demigods. James hints at potential future interactions and the unknown destinies that await these mythological figures in a contemporary setting. The AI Carter will first read what was first said in September 27, 2019. The deep dive will be at the end. Is it for it all? I would be hurt if you caught a thunderbolt in the butt from leaving early. Bye-bye.
First, written in September 27th, 2019. Demigods and Pull-Ups, author James Ray, the Phantom Texter. Since Hollywood seems to be enamored of making reboots and revisionist storytelling, I figure it's my turn to give it a shot and ruin some mythology. I am Kronos. Along with my brethren, the Titans, we have done this world no great service. Through the eons of dust and nebulas and living, dying suns, I have watched. Even an all-powerful Titan can be unsure of how to make things right, which stood to explain my skepticism of the plans of my youngest and last of my Olympian prodigy, Zeus. Although I still observe the plans of his elder sister Hera, of her three demigods, Victor, Liam, and Charles, I still see great promise, and only the witches of destiny would know their fate. And of my eldest progeny Hades, the mystery only widens. I have only contact with the one princess, Jamie N. But Zeus has under his plans and care the Princess Zan, much like the story told of Princess Diana, the Wonder Woman of fantasy. This too shall be a Wonder Woman. Oh, that is if she ever makes it out of her pull-ups. Her and her cousins, the princes and princesses of the next generation, have the look of strong demigods, the new gods of this realm. But it is still too early to tell what powers they will take, or of what role I will take in their taking. As the eldest of the young demigods has taken to calling me Grandpa, blah, some age-old rule euphemism. I, the great Kronos, referred to as such? Why not Grandfather Kronos, or just Grandfather? Grandpa, I blame Hera for this. I fear the honorific will stick. It is rumored that Zeus may soon journey to my land of El Paso, and with him bring the young demigod, Xian. He has no true understanding of his coming trials. No one does, and far more so for my offspring in general. What sort of a destiny can a new god make of this world? What sort of a world can an infant demigod make of the next? And what can a Kronos do about any of it? Even an all-powerful Titan can be unsure of how to make things right.
Okay, so welcome to another deep dive. As always, you guys share some really cool sources with us.
Yeah.
And our mission is to kind of like extract that core, that fascinating core.
Right.
The stuff that really gets you thinking in new ways.
Right.
So today we are going to be diving into two pieces by James Ray.
Okay.
And they're both titled Demigods and Pull-Ups.
Okay.
From September 27th, 2019. And we've got a blog post.
Yeah.
And a PDF. And one of the things that was immediately striking is this really playful take on mythology.
Absolutely. And I think it's the sheer audacity of it all that really stands out. You know, he's basically hitting the reset button on all of cosmic history and casting his family as, you know, Titans, Olympians.
All right.
This next generation of demigods.
It's a big swing.
Huge swing. And to do it all through the eyes of Kronos, I mean...
Yeah, talk about a unique perspective. It's mythology, but like through a family photo album.
Yeah.
So I think for our deep dive today, we really want to understand what's his vision here?
Yeah.
You know, how do these mythological roles actually play out? Here's his family, and what does it tell us about things like legacy and, you know, these stories that we kind of tell ourselves?
Absolutely.
So let's unpack, like, the central idea.
Okay.
You know, this whole reboot, as he calls it.
Yeah, Ray is really upfront about what he's doing here. You know, he sees this trend of like reboots, revisions happening in pop culture. And he's like, okay, I want to do that with mythology. And he even jokes about wanting to like ruin some mythology. So it's clear he's going for this lighthearted approach.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about academics, it's about imagination and storytelling.
He's not taking himself too seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think sets this tone.
Yeah.
That's both respectful of the source material, but also kind of irreverent.
Yeah.
You know?
It's fun.
And at the heart of all this, we've got Ray himself as Kronos. And for anyone who needs a quick refresher, Kronos is the big guy in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
The father of the Olympian gods. You know, Zeus, Hades, Hera, all those guys. But of course, he's also the one who gets overthrown by his kids.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how Ray plays him.
And that's one of the things that really stands out to me is that he's not the classic Kronos that we see, you know, the tyrant, this all-powerful figure.
The guy who eats his children.
Yeah, exactly. This Kronos is world-weary, uncertain, and he's got this line where he says, even an all-powerful Titan can be unsure of how to make things right.
Yeah.
And it just immediately makes him more relatable, I think.
It humanizes him.
It humanizes him, yeah.
Yeah.
And it suggests a different kind of power, you know. Maybe it's more the weight of experience than brute force.
Interesting.
And I wonder if this weariness, you know, if it's Ray's way of exploring what it means to be like the patriarch.
Right.
And, you know, the potential exhaustion of that power across generations.
That's a good point. It's definitely not the Kronos you'd picture, you know, from the myths. He's got this whole, like he talks about, watching through the eons of dust and nebulas and living, dying suns.
Yeah, it gives you this sense of...
Right. Deep time.
Yeah.
And like, could even a Titan get jaded?
Yeah.
Right, after all that time.
Absolutely.
So from this vantage point, he's watching his Olympian kids. And first up, we've got Zeus.
Okay.
Played by Ray's son, Aaron. And right away, Kronos is skeptical of Zeus's plans.
What's interesting is that we don't actually get any details about Zeus's plans.
Yeah, right.
And that lack of detail actually creates this tension.
Yeah,
you know,
like unspoken.
Unspoken, yeah, and it hints at maybe this conflict or the difference of opinion between
the generations.
Yeah, like father-son kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know, Kronos, having been overthrown himself, might be looking at any kind of grand plan.
Right.
With a certain level of like concern.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, it makes you wonder if Ray is kind of subtly exploring this idea of the cyclical nature of power and ambition within families.
That's really interesting. So then we have Hera, Ray's daughter, Natasha, and Kronos seems to be way more optimistic about her. And her demigod children?
Victor, Liam, and Charles. He even says that they have great promise, which is so different from his attitude towards Zeus.
It's a stark contrast, right?
Yeah. So I feel like that speaks volumes about the family dynamics.
Family dynamics.
Right. It's like, okay, maybe there's a better relationship or different expectations for Hera's line.
Yeah, and it begs the question of what does promise even mean in this context?
Yeah. Like, is it power?
Is it power? Is it wisdom? Is it something about their character? But this subtle way that Kronos views them differently hints that there's this complex family dynamic going on beneath the surface of these mythological roles.
Definitely. And then there's Hades. Ray's son, James Jr., and he's even more mysterious.
He's shrouded in mystery, even more so than the traditional Hades.
Than the, you know, the god of the underworld.
Yeah, right.
Kronos mentions that the mystery only widens around him, and that his only contact is with Hades' daughter, Princess Jaime.
Okay.
So it kind of echoes that traditional isolation.
That makes sense.
That we see with Hades. So do you think he's deliberately keeping Hades like separate, even in this family setting.
I think he's leaning into that, right?
Yeah.
That sense of otherness, you know, maybe it symbolizes a more distant relationship or even a strained one within the family, which mirrors how Hades is portrayed, you know, separate from the other Olympians.
Okay.
So it adds another layer to how Ray is mapping his family onto these ancient roles.
So we've got the Olympians,
Yeah.
but what about the next generation? The demigods.
Right.
The focus seems to be mostly on Zeus's daughter, Princess Xian.
Okay.
And right away, Kronos compares her to Wonder Woman. You know, so you immediately picture
Get that image of
power.
yeah, like she's gonna be a major force. But then Ray throws in this like
He does this great thing where he undercuts it.
he undercuts it with this hilarious detail.
He says, oh, that is if she ever makes it out of her pull-ups.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It's so funny.
It's so good. It's so good because it takes this epic, almost legendary figure and puts her right back in the reality of being a toddler.
Of being a kid, yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how Ray blends the mythical with the mundane.
So what do you think, what's he trying to say about, like, potential with this?
Yeah, what's he saying about potential and, you know, the path to actually achieving it?
Because it's not always a straight line.
It's never a straight line.
Right,
Yeah.
especially with kids.
It highlights that gap between expectation and reality, which is so true.
Yeah.
Even for someone who's supposedly destined for great things. And it's not just Xian. He also mentions the other, like, princes and princesses and their potential as the new gods of this realm.
Yeah.
But then that uncertainty creeps back in. He's like, it is still too early to tell what powers they will take.
And this uncertainty about their powers, and then the fact that Kronos is thinking about his own future role.
Yeah.
You know, he says, or of what role I will take and they're taking. It brings up all these questions about, like,
mentorship, influence. And you know how power gets passed down?
like, is she going to guide them?
Is he going to try to interfere? Is he just going to sit back and watch?
He seems pretty tired.
He does seem tired.
So I'm thinking maybe he's hoping for the latter.
Yeah, but you know, you can't help but think that family connection creates a sense of responsibility.
Like, totally.
Whether he wants it or not.
Yeah, he can't just completely step away.
Right.
So it brings us back to Kronos' perspective. This is where things get, like, so relatable and hilarious. The oldest demigod has started calling Kronos Grandpa.
Oh, no.
And he is not having it. He hates it.
I love this part.
I know. He calls it, like,
Yeah.
oh, blah, some age-old rule euphemism. And he's like, no, call me Grandfather Kronos.
He's got to be formal.
Or just grandfather. You know, of course, who does he play?
Hera.
Hera.
Of course.
Of course. It's just classic grandparent behavior.
It is. It's so good.
I love that he's this ancient being.
I know.
Who's seen it all. But he's hung up on this.
Hung up on the name.
On what they call him.
It's fantastic.
It's so funny. And Ray just nails it.
It's so well written.
And the fact that he's worried that the honorific will stick.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's amazing. It's like this little personal battle.
Yeah.
In the middle of this cosmic story.
Yeah. So I guess the question for you, the listener, is what's the takeaway here? James Ray has taken this massive, you know, established story of Greek mythology and made it personal.
Yeah.
Made it funny, even. And he's recast these legendary figures in a way that reflects his own family.
And it's all told to the eyes of Kronos, this, like, world-weary titan.
Yeah.
So we see those classic roles, you know, the powerful leader,
Right.
the mysterious loner,
Yeah.
the promising young hero. But they're all seen through this very specific family lens, colored by Kronos' experiences.
And his worries.
His worries, yeah. And some of them are pretty comical.
Especially the grandpa thing.
Oh my gosh.
I can't get over that.
But I think it makes you think about the power of reinterpreting stories.
Yeah.
You know, taking something ancient and putting it in a modern context, a personal context.
And Ray does it in such a funny way.
He really does.
It makes you wonder how our own experiences and relationships shape how we see even the oldest stories. Like, what new meanings come up when we take something familiar and apply it to our own lives?
So to sum it all up, we took a trip through James Ray's imagination, his reboot of mythology, with his family as the star.
The gods, the demigods.
All narrated by Kronos, the Titan, who really doesn't want to be called Grandpa.
It's great.
It's so good. And it's lighthearted, but it also makes you think
It does.
about family, about power, and about the future, which is always uncertain.
So here's a final thought for you to take with you. Think about a story, a myth, maybe a historical event, that you know really well. What happens if you reimagine it with people you know, taking on those key roles? What new perspectives come up? What new things do you learn about the original story? Or even about your own relationships when you create your own deep dive into the stories that shape how we see the world.
And each other.
Exactly.
Like that.